This piece, like the first one, opens with electric, staticky kind of sound effects that are actually digital recordings of very high voltage generators and cables. Several sounds were combined together to produce the final high voltage effect. This is a very high voltage environment and also very high up in the air, probably on an alien planet or something. And this set of musical instruments is by far the most abstract on the video album. They're the most unlike conventional instruments. Many of the previous animations had fairly literal musical instruments. They weren't exactly like real existing instruments, but they were enough reminiscent of existing ones that you kind of knew what to expect as far as how they moved and played. The percussion here is recognizable as such, but everything in this environment is light emitting. The lasers here behave in a more complex way than the lasers in the earlier pieces that were basically straight line, back and forth motion kind of things. Here, we have this sort of double laser effect with a spirographic pattern in the middle, traveling up and down non-parallel sets of rails, and they oscillate to depict vibrato. They get larger and smaller and change color slightly based on volume and intensity. These bass emitters are plasma-filled, or maybe they're filled with some kind of radioactive grape juice or something, I'm not sure. But anyway, they visualize the Taurus bass pedals part. Taurus bass pedals are a classic Moog synthesizer that's played with your feet, usually for bass parts. I don't use real Taurus bass pedals here for the soundtrack, just a synth that kind of reminds me of the same sound that they make. By far the most abstract object in this entire video album is what we call the light curtain. It's the thing back there that kind of looks like psychedelic smoke rising up. Every part in the music needs to be visualized, and the light curtain depicts the chorused strings, synth chords in the background that you hear. Each chord has a unique painted graphics image called a texture map, which slowly crawls up the light curtain. This is a subtle ambient effect in how it's tied in with the music, and you don't necessarily pick it up the first time you watch it, but it's there to ensure that each part in the music is visualized in some way. This is a second kind of laser that follows an electric guitar-like sound. And as an aside, for anyone who's curious, there aren't any real guitars on this entire video album. They're all synthesized and processed in certain ways to sound like electric guitars, to a greater or lesser extent depending on the context. The yellow voltage spikes that we have going on here are a little different than some of the other instruments in that every note is actually depicted by 4 separate objects. First of all, we've got a mirrored pattern happening, so each note appears both on the left and on the right, and in addition, we've got an echo. So each object pair then happens again, dimmer when the echo happens. This is the oldest piece of music on the video album. It's been remade at least once and has had a working title of WCS2 and more recently Electric. The original mix was done on a British-made analog mixing console onto DAT, which is digital analog tape. Then years later, that mix was dumped into a digital audio sequencing program and enhanced with a crisper bass line for the bass tower sounds and the yellow voltage spikes, using a digital synth that didn't exist at the time that the original music was produced. Then the MIDI file was dug up and that was used to drive the animation. In the end, after an all-digital remix, it all syncs up. This is my other favorite shot coming up here, where the 4 light beams rise up as we modulate to a new key. In a way, this is kind of the climax of the whole video album. This piece is the last on the video album for more than one reason. First of all, it just sort of fits as the last piece musically, I think. Sort of leaves you out there somewhere. But another reason is the fact that it is the most abstract. It's less obvious initially how the instruments work, and seeing the other animations kind of convinces you about the synchronization of Animusic, so you're more prepared for this one. Some people have told me that they didn't really get this one initially, but after watching it a few times, it became their favorite. Well, we're at the end of the last piece here, and therefore also at the end of this commentary. If you've made it this far, either you found it interesting, which I hope is the case, or else you're sitting there feeling kind of frustrated saying, I can't hear the music, it's just some guy talking. If that's you, there's 2 solutions. Either press the audio button on your remote, if that's what yours is called, and that'll switch you to the music track, or else hit Menu, and from there select Video Album All, or one of the singles. Well, we hope you enjoy the video album, and thanks for listening to this commentary. Wayne Lytle signing off, over and out.